Well, hello everyone. It's another day, and you know what that means. Another computer video. Today we are going to be doing some work on the Dell Dimension 8250. So, this was the second computer that my family ever owned. Now, the first one was a custom-built computer from CompUSA, circa 1994, I think. And that one lasted up until about 2001 or 2002, and by that time its specs were just starting to not be sufficient, and it was having some other issues, so we got this in about 2003. I think that adds up just about right. And for years, up until 2013, so what is that, 10 years, it was the primary machine and the only machine in this house that had internet access. The cable modem was plugged directly into this, no wireless of any kind, and it was my arch nemesis because it was very slow. It was slow back then, and I mean like probably starting around 2009 is when it began to show its age and slow down quite a bit. And at that point, it was mainly because there was just so much junk on it from a family of 4 people, because it was a family computer. And a lot of stuff, a lot of bloatware installed over the years, you know. You know what happens. But I had gone and uninstalled a bunch of that when it got retired to up here. This is my brother's bedroom. And it's just kind of here. I think my mother uses it to do her taxes a lot. Because it runs Microsoft Money, and none of her other computers are capable of doing that because they're all 64-bit machines. So, yeah. It's also the only computer in this house that has a built-in floppy disk left, and built-in PS2 ports, and a built-in modem. All the other ones have to have the external type, which is unfortunate, but that's just how it goes. Never really cared for the case design, especially for the fact that you have to lift this up to access two USB ports, which are very inopportunely placed, if that's even a correct usage of that word. It's a real pain. A lot of my flash drives won't even fit in there, so I have to plug them in the back, but whatever. Just in case anyone's curious about the specs, this thing has a 120 gigabyte hard drive. RPM speed, I don't know, whatever they were using in 2003. And that was a pretty good size for 2003 too. This was a higher end machine, definitely. RAM 512 megabytes, and let's see, processor Pentium 4, but I can assure you it is not the fastest one out there. I don't think it has hyper-threading. This computer was always slow. I mean, no real questions about that. That was just, if you were going to use this computer, you were going to have a bad time. When it was our primary computer, the instant I came home from school, I would, before even taking off my shoes, I'd press the button and wait for it to boot up, because, you know, this is one of those machines where you could turn it on, go out to get a coffee, and then hopefully by the time you got back, it would be into your user account, where obviously you'd have to click on it first, but you know what I'm saying, it was painful. It was painful then, and recently it's gotten even more painful. And I'll show you some of that, but it's ridiculous now. Like before it was somewhat understandable. I hesitate to use the word tolerable because it was barely tolerable, but it was understandable that it was slower, just because of all the stuff that was on it, the age of the computer, the fact that it's a Pentium 4, you know, all that sort of thing. But now it's just absolutely ridiculous, and it's not due to malware. I've pulled every trick that I know of to try to speed this up, you know, cleaning out temporary files registry, defragmenting the hard drive, uninstalling more software, disabling startup processes, you know, just everything you normally do, and it seemed to make it slower. And I've noticed that the fan's running a little bit faster than normal. I think that may just be a coincidence, due to something else, but I think it's really the hard drive that's not long for this world, and you'll hear why once I turn this thing on. You can hear it over the fan, and I mean the fan runs at almost full speed the entire time, so yeah. But what are we going to do with it? Well, we're going to replace it with this King Spec SSD. And while I'm not usually a big fan of solid-state drives just because it bothers me that you could count how many cycles you have as opposed to a hard drive where you might get a lot or you might get a little depending on how well it's maintained and all that. This computer needs it. It's also not used on a daily basis, so I mean this will probably last the life of the computer, to be honest. And if it doesn't, it was cheap enough. It's an IDE hard drive, IDE solid-state drive. It's not like, it's anything big. It's 120 gigabytes, same capacity as this. Speed, I don't know, and who cares, because we're using an IDE interface. Can you hear that? Luckily the fan's not running, or it is running, but not very much. So, it's not as loud today. Go figure, you make a video and it's not as bad. But you can see it's booting up. It is running Windows XP Home Edition. So, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making an image of the hard drive, which if this were my own computer, I'd just do a fresh install, honestly, because this is the original install from 2003. And, I don't know about you, but, whoa, what's that? Oh, it did some update processes before, believe it or not. I don't know why, I thought XP was long out of support, but apparently it updated the other day through Windows Update Manager. Okay, good. Yep, so I'm going to make this screen go black just so you don't see the names of my family members that are up on the screen. And I'm going to bring it back and you can stare at this very cluttered desk. Okay, there we go. Here's my desktop. I have it set to Windows Classic. And that actually got to my desktop in a pretty decent amount of time. But, of course, it's not usable yet. Here's the original keyboard, if anyone's wondering. It's just a typical Dell keyboard. Replacement mouse, because, Dell mice never last. It's one of the more lackluster things that Dell makes, is their mice. It was an optical mouse, though, that came with it. I forgot to mention also that this computer has a graphics card. It has no onboard graphics. And the graphics card is a NVIDIA GeForce GT 420. If you watched Draga 1, you might be familiar with that. Blaze it! Yeah, okay. It's funny. It's kind of like a trip back in time every time I open this up, because there's always a bunch of old files from when I was like my freshman year of high school on here. Because I actually was still using it then. This computer also has a lot of old games on it, like Chip's Challenge. That was always fun. I still play that sometimes. And, the ski-free game where you get eaten by the abominable snowman at the end, and a bunch of other classic games like that. See, now it's starting to get to the point where it's not happy about anything. Like whenever you start to open it, even just one program, it can be anything. It could be Microsoft Word, it could be a simple game. Sometimes just having a couple of Windows Explorer windows open will make the computer lag like that. And all the icons disappear over here. So, I can't even move it now. Go away. Why won't it close? Okay. Anyway. So, we're going to create an image. I had Paragon Backup and Recovery on here, but it was not the free version, so I had to uninstall it. So, I think what I'm going to do, just to save time and my own sanity, is just create an image in a virtual environment. So let's see what we can do. Okay, so the top drive no longer opens the regular way, so you have to do it manually because it's stuck in place. I guess there's probably a way to lubricate it so that... Oops. Come on. This is a lot easier to do off camera. Oops, did I didn't even... There we go. See, like, once you get it past a certain point, it'll open just fine. It's like, I think something in it just needs cleaning. But anyway, we've got two choices. We got Hiren's Boot CD and Paragon Restore Utility. And Firefox decided to open again. Well, that's interesting. Whatever. So, I think I'm going to go with Paragon just because that's what I've used in the past. We're going to be putting the image onto this external hard drive here from Seagate. To do that, we're going to need to reboot the computer. And let's see if the start menu will open. There we go. This is why I never got why people hated the way you shut down your computer on Windows Vista. Because like on XP you have to click that and then wait for the window to pop up. Whereas Vista, you just had to click an arrow and then the shutdown command was right there and it wouldn't ask you a second time. I don't know. People just love to hate that operating system, don't they? Like, they look for reasons to hate it. Getting off topic, though. Come on. Just give me the turn off command. I just want to turn it off. Okay. Okay, we'll wait for this to shut down, which could, I might have to shave by then, but we'll let it do it, and then we'll boot off of this, which will hopefully not be as painful. Alright, we're finally shut down. Let's do this. Get in there. Okay. So. Keyboard failure, eh? Well, luckily it stopped failing. Look at that. It's so trippy. As you can see, I've plugged in the external hard drive. Another pet peeve about those USB ports under there, they're actually backwards, so you have to plug in all of your devices backwards. I really don't know why they would have chosen that place. Of all the places they could have put them, they had to put them there. A lot of the later ones actually had a cutout down here that had the USB ports and also the headphone jack that's under there as well. And I think some of the later ones had a microphone input that was down there too. This one doesn't, it just has USB ports and a headphone jack. Yeah, anyway. The backup has been initiated. So, now we'll go away for about, it'll probably take about 3 hours. Maybe a little less because it's only 47 gigabytes we're doing as opposed to 100, so I'd say 2 to 3 hours. See you then. Well, good news, the deed is done. It has finished. Here's the SSD in an anti-static bag. They also are nice enough to provide an IDE cable, just in case you don't already have one, and some screws. And yes, this is a notebook-sized drive, but they really don't offer anything else that I could find. Can't really find the full-sized ones that would fit in a computer like this, so we're going to have to ghetto that. I mean, if this were a nice state-of-the-art computer that I took a lot of pride in, I'd make sure that I had a proper mounting technique for this, but I mean, this is an old Dimension, so why bother? But anyway, for those curious, it's a King spec 128 gigabytes, so 8 extra gigabytes. And, yeah. Anyway, let's open up the beast, because this thing is a beast. Not necessarily in a good way. It's like old hat. I had taken this computer down from there and opened it up like 7 times because I tried to upgrade the RAM. Bought an extra gigabyte in 2 512 stick denominations. Right now there are 256 sticks in there. It turns out one of the sticks that I had purchased was dead on arrival, and of course they have to be inserted in pair. So it's not like, and they also have to be the same denomination in either of the 2 slot groups. So it's not like I could just use the one. So that was kind of disappointing, but may look into getting some more from a different vendor. But 512 should do it for now anyway. The main thing slowing this computer down, I think, is the hard drive. So let's open her up and remove it. So here we are, and not too bad in terms of dust, but just give you a little tour. So here we have the infamous Pentium 4 with the giant heatsink and the fan that runs very loudly. I cleaned a lot of the dust off of that last time, but there aren't any bloated capacitors, so mine has been spared from capacitor gate as of yet. There's our BIOS battery, which is still holding a charge quite nicely. And you can see we have 2 empty expansion slots. And you can see we have this wire that goes from our sound card here to our modem here, in case you wanted to make telephone calls using the computer, I suppose. I think that's what that's for. I don't really know. I've never really done that. Although this modem has saved me. When Hurricane Irene came through in 2011, it didn't knock our electricity out, but it did knock our cable out for a week. And so back then I didn't have any cellular communication devices like, a smartphone or anything. I still don't. I have an iPad that does have data now, a gigabyte of data per month, but I didn't then. So the only way for me to get online for about a week was through dial-up, and I did. NetZero still offers free dial-up to this day, so this came in quite handy, even though it was painful to use. But slow internet's better than no internet, in my opinion. Anyway, the main star of the show. Oh, here's the RAM, by the way. These are our two sticks, and these are 2 blanking sticks. I don't know exactly what the proper term for that is, but our hard drive is in this bay. I knew I should have turned on the flash. Let me fix that. Okay, that's much better. So here it is, right here, and now we will remove that, and yeah, it should be fun. So here we have our Western Digital Caviar. That's the name of the drive, and sounds very unappetizing if you ask me, but it's manufactured in the 17th of January 2003, so it's had a good run, and it's time for it to be replaced. But yeah, you can see there's quite a bit of size difference. So yeah, we'll take the hard drive cover off, and well, not the cover, take these side, I don't know what these are called. They're in place of a hard drive bay. We'll remove these, and I think I can attach one of them to that, and that'll at least keep it in place somewhat. It's better than just having it loose in there or duct taped. Heaven forbid. Again, if this were someone else's machine, I'd make sure I had a proper way to mount it, but since this is just kind of a beater computer that's used for taxes once a month and stuff like that, yeah, I'm not going to worry about it. So something I forgot to mention earlier, if you intend to do this, you will need one of these, and this is essentially just a little adapter, a circuit board with a couple connectors, and it converts standard IDE and Molex into PATA. PATA is parallel ATA as opposed to SATA, serial ATA. And it's really just the same thing as IDE, only it carries power as well, and it's a lot smaller. It's intended for laptops instead of desktops, and that's what this solid-state drive was intended for. You can see the PATA connector there. This was intended for a laptop. I couldn't really find one that was full size, and even if I did, it would probably be expensive, because as it was, that was like $70 for how much is this again? 128 gigabytes. Yeah. Here's what it looks like when you attach the thing, in case anyone's wondering. It attaches very nicely, and the little PATA connector, I like it because on this one, this cable, ribbon cable that they provide with you. You can see it has all of the pins, but on the adapter it has one of them in the middle blocked out because there is one missing on here as well. So it basically tells you the right way to align the adapter with the actual drive so that you don't do it upside down. So that's nice. There are several different versions of these as well. You can find them on Amazon and places like that. But anyway, let's hook her up. Alright, so unfortunately these things aren't going to fit on the side. Originally I thought I would put just like one screw in them so it could be at least somewhat mounted to the case, but that's not going to work because the adapter is going to get in the way. I think, yeah, it definitely will. So what I'm thinking here is, if I can stretch this cord any further, okay. You'll see in here that they included two at the bottom of the case to install a second hard drive if you ever wanted to put a secondary hard drive in here. So what I'm thinking is, since this has holes on the bottom, I can just attach one of the screws that are already down there. You can see they're mounted with screws. I can just drive that right into one of the holes on here and mount it that way. Still haphazard, but whatever, you know. It's the idea of securing it to these things here, which there are actually two here. That didn't work out. So what I did is, this ribbon cable was blocking the entrance where you would put a second floppy drive. So I just tucked that in the secondary floppy drive bay, since there's none in there. And that's where it is. And is that haphazard? Absolutely. But it's just how it's going to have to be. I'm not concerned about any short-circuiting, just because of how it's laid out there, so don't repair your computer that way. Find something better. Don't be lazy like I am. Pro tip. Okay, so it's been installed. Everything's been put back. The CD is in the drive, and everything's ready to go to see if we can re-image, or not re-image, but put the image on to the drive. We'll see what happens. This is the moment of truth. Okay, well. Okay. Okay, so it's so weird. Sorry for the silence, but it's just so weird to turn this computer on and not immediately hear the whir of the hard drive. Like, my first thought was, oh my gosh, something has gone horribly wrong. Because I didn't hear like the cement mixer sound of the drive. But it's just, that is amazing how quiet it is. It'll get a lot louder once the fan's running, but my goodness. Alright, let's boot off the CD drive. I can hear all the detailed clicking of the drive. That's so cool. Alright, so we want to do normal mode. I'm going to have to want to attach the external hard drive there, though. So I'll be back in a second. Well, there you have it. It's been recognized. It's already formatted as NTFS at 118 gigabytes, so yeah, we lost a little bit due to the formatting. And it says SSD, so it knows what it is. And that's awesome. So, I think the old drive, I don't know if the old drive was formatted as NTFS or FAT32. So I don't really know, but it shouldn't matter, because when we put the image on there, it should overwrite it. Or do whatever it does. So, let's see. Alright, so we'll go and write the backup to it. And there we go. We've already copied about almost 300 megabytes. That's going very fast. So this should be done in a matter of minutes, really. I mean, well, that's a bit of a stretch. But it's not going to take nearly as long as it did before. That's really incredible how fast that's going. Especially for IDE, but anyway, we'll let that go. And the moment of truth when we come back. Alright, moment of truth. Oh. Well, that's disappointing. Let's see what we can do about that. Well, It's finally working. It's funny, I started this video project in February and it's almost May. Yeah, there's been a lot of delays along the way just because, I don't know, I don't have a lot of time to just be shooting videos and spending a lot of time on this sort of thing. But I finished it, got around to it. I had to make another image of this hard drive. Or actually, I didn't need to make another image, I just needed to rewrite the image back onto the SSD, because I guess there were errors doing it the first time. But it worked, and it's everything I thought it would be. I mean, you're not going to break any LAN speed records booting it up, but it does boot and get to the desktop in under 30 seconds. There still is one problem, though, where the computer lags quite a bit, and I found out it's actually an SVC host. If I go... So it's one of those processes. I force quit it, but like when the SVC host process is running, it makes the CPU run at 100%, which might explain why the fans were going crazier than I remember them going. So I'm pretty sure that's due to some DLL going haywire, and I disabled a bunch of services that were unnecessary, even more than I had already disabled. If that doesn't work, I'll have to do some more troubleshooting on that, but that's probably why I was having so much difficulty, like more than I used to. But hopefully that's fixed. If it's not, I can continue to fix that. I'm not going to show that on video, though, because it's outside of the scope of this video. But yeah, it worked very smoothly after I rewrote the image on. Another thing I did is I had this computer connected to the internet using an old router flashed with the DDWRT in client bridge mode. I actually went to the thrift store the other day and found it was a bag, and it had like a DVI to HDMI adapter, but it also had 2 wireless dongles, and it cost $4 for 2 wireless dongles. And if you know anything about those, it's very uncommon to see just one of those for anywhere near $4. Of course, they were old. They're wireless G. But the one that I actually used one of them on here now, and the reason I switched from the old setup with it sort of hardwired is because that router was creating a lot of interference with my radio equipment. It put out a lot of spurious emissions, and especially with shortwave radio, it just made listening very difficult, because my room is on the other side of this wall, and so it was a nightmare trying to use the radio. So that's why I switched to that. And also I can use that for my home theater PC now, because if you remember from my home theater PC video, the Wi-Fi antenna inside got screwed up, so I can hardwire, put that in quotations, hardwire my home theater PC with that now if I so choose. So yeah, that's fantastic. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.